Hello everyone, my name is Hannah. I'll be your safari guide. A few safety reminders before we get to the fun. Please keep all hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times. And please remain seated at all times. Now that does include my younger friends as well, but they are welcome to sit in laps. Sometimes they can see a little bit better that way. But they do need to remain seated in one spot the entire journey. Now if you look above your heads, there is an animal spotting guide. That's going to tell you what you might see on there. I can't guarantee everything on that list, but I still think you'll see quite a bit. Now we are just waiting for that all clear, but it shouldn't take too much longer. We are going to be entering into the Little Aturi Forest. Animals do love to use their natural camouflage to blend in, so make sure you're keeping an eye out. Over there to the right is an okapi. A lot of people think they're related to the zebra, and that's because of those stripes on their lips. But they're actually going to be the closest living relative to the giraffe, and we know that based off their skull structure. Sometimes they can be a little bit harder to spot, and that's because their species is known to be super shy and timid. There's a black rhino laying down on the left. They are going to be a more solitary species, so that's how we'll spot them off on their own. We can also identify them from their lip structure. They are going to have a more triangular shape to their lips, and that also helps them with their eating. And over here to the right are some greater kudu, and then a little bit farther up the hill are some bongo. Now both those species do have those stripes on their backs, and those are going to mimic the sun rays that peek through the trees, and that's how they can both blend in with the forest. And it does look like there are two saddlebill storks on the left. They are a lot taller than that. They are just kneeling down right now. They will be able to communicate to each other by rustling their beaks. We're now headed into the Safi River region, where animals spend most of their time in or around the water, so keep your eyes peeled for any bubbles, ripples, or even shadows beneath the water's surface. Over to the right are some pink-backed pelicans. They do get that name from their mating season. A patch on their back is going to turn pink, as well as a little spot on their beaks, and that's going to kind of look like they're blushing. Over to the left, there are some Nile hippos. They do spend most of their time under the water. That is going to help them stay cool. And they can hold their breath for several minutes to allow them to do that. Now, hippos don't necessarily swim. Instead, they're going to run, jump, and walk across the bottom of the water. And whenever they hang out in a group, that's going to be called a bloat. It does actually look like there are a few more hippos hanging out by that back waterfall. And if you stay looking to the left, you should be able to spot some Nile crocodile. And when fully grown, they can reach up to 16 feet long. now crocs are the largest reptile species in Africa. They are going to be excellent parents. Whenever they have eggs, they will roll them around in their mouths to help hatch them. Then when they do have those babies, they'll keep them in their mouths or even sometimes on their backs. And that's going to help them stay protected from any nearby danger. Coming up on the right, we are going to pass by a baobab tree. They do look a little funny, and that's because they stay leafless 9 months out of the year. That is going to help them conserve water down in their trunks. Animals do love these trees, and they'll do anything to get to that water. Sometimes they will even eat the bark. That baobab tree is also going to tell us that we're entering into the savanna. The savanna is going to be the largest part of the Harambe Reserve, and it is going to be home to many different animal species. Now there is actually going to be a baby Maasai giraffe over there on the right. Maasai giraffes are going to have a more rough and jagged edge to their spots. And when babies are born, they're already going to be about 6 feet tall. That's going to be about the same height as the length of their parents' necks. Smaller antelope, but they could jump 6 feet in the air upwards and 13 feet forward. They also rank in the top 10 fastest land animals. They can almost run up to 6 to each of them. Those patterns can also be identified up to miles away. And unlike domesticated dogs, they're only going to have 3 toes on each paw. These are some Hartman's mountain zebra. Their stripe patterns are going to be much like a human fingerprint, so they are unique to each of them. If you look a little bit closer at their stripe patterns, you'll notice thicker ones around their bottom. That's what tells us that they are Hartman's mountain zebra. And whenever zebras have babies, they are going to imprint on their mother's stripe patterns. That's going to help them identify her in a group. And a group of zebra is going to be called a dazzle. Now, giraffes do spend about 20 hours of their day eating and only about 30 minutes sleeping. Giraffes do also have prehensile tongues. That basically just means finger-like. That's going to help them reach leaves and other objects off tall trees. It also helps them whenever they need to bend down below. There are 2 elands. There's one hanging out by that giraffe there to the right, and there's one on this little hill up ahead. They're going to be the largest species of antelope, and they can grow to be 6 feet tall just at their shoulder. Believe it or not, giraffes are going to have the same amount of neck bones that we do in ours. Their bones are just going to be a lot bigger. We are approaching some downed trees, and that's typically a good sign that elephants are around. There is going to be an African elephant. They do flap their ears as a way to cool down. We do typically find them doing that most of the time. They can cool off in a few other ways. Sometimes we'll see them hanging out in the water, but they can also use their trunks. We'll see them splash themselves with water or even throw dirt on their backs. Now there is one more area where they like to hang out, so we can head there next to see if we can spot any. Passing by some red clay. Elephants do love to eat it. It's going to act like a little multivitamin for them. There are some more over there to the left. Elephants do form two different groups. Males do tend to be a little bit more solitary, so sometimes we'll spot them off on their own, but they're going to form bachelor groups. Then females and babies will form female groups. If there's ever a male baby, they'll stay at the female group until their teenage years. Then that's when they'll go off on their own or join a bachelor group. Elephants will also use their trunks to help them eat, breathe, and drink water. They can also use it to help them reach for their food and carry it around if they ever need. And as we finish rounding this turn, there are going to be greater flamingos. They are going to be the largest species of flamingo. It does take about 2 years for them to develop the full pink color, and that's going to come from their diet of brine shrimp. A group of flamingo is going to be known as a flamboyance. some white rhinos. They do love to hang out around this area, and that's because of that mud wallow. Looks like one of them has been in it recently. It does help them stay cool, but it also acts like a natural sun protectant and bug repellent for them. They are pretty social with each other, so they do hang out in groups, and those are going to be called a crash. And already spot a lion. She's going to be hanging out in this middle rock right there. Might be able to see her a little bit better on the other side. Lions do spend about 16 to 20 hours of their day sleeping and resting, so that's what we'll find them doing most. Males go out and hunt. Now there is actually going to be a second female hanging out at the top of those Kobe rocks. Warthogs. They are going to be some of the largest burrowing animals. And even though they do have smaller legs, they can run 34 miles per hour. And that's actually faster than a giraffe. Look like there are some ostrich eggs off to the right. They are going to be incredibly strong. An adult human could stand on one without it breaking. And just one of those eggs is going to be about 3 pounds. And that's the same equivalence of 2 dozen chicken eggs. It does look like our warden friends here have some Nigerian dwarf goats. Despite their size, they are going to be fully grown. Their species is also known to be super playful and social. It is pretty common for farmers to keep goats as pets. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that we should. I don't think my mom would be too happy if I ever brought one home. Goats are going to... Our time together is sadly coming to an end. So if you have any personal belongings, now is a great time to start gathering them up. It's been pretty bumpy out there and you don't want to leave anything behind. It's going to be a far walk back here to Africa.